The paradigm of foreign language learning by means of classroom teaching is unquestionably the most common and widespread model for language learning that's abroad in this world. I think that many, if not most people, asked to conceptualize the idea of learning a foreign language will almost automatically envision the scenario of a teacher teaching a group of students in a classroom. And I think that it's often surprising to me that many of these people seem to truly be unaware that there are any alternatives to this kind of learning, and they in their turn are genuinely surprised to learn that it is both possible and sometimes even preferable to attempt to teach yourself a language than it is to have somebody else try to teach it to you. In terms of teaching languages, both from my personal experience, both as a student and as a teacher, I have to say that I know that it is possible. This paradigm can work, it can produce results. I have learned languages in this fashion, and if I say so myself, I've taught some languages successfully in this model. But that said, I think that if you're at all interested in watching a video like this, you probably have had the experience yourself or know somebody who's had the experience of studying a language with a teacher in a classroom for many years perhaps, and not getting any real results from it. And even worse than the fruitlessness of it all is the frustration and the demoralization and the discouragement of further language learning that can be a result of this process. As I just said, since it can succeed, rather than there being any inherent flaw in this model of learning, I think it's the execution of it that produces failure in the majority of cases. And to be utterly fair, we just have to be blunt and face the simple, hard, cold truth of the matter, which is that the majority, most language learning endeavors are, as a gamble, are failing propositions. Most people who set out to learn a foreign language by whatever method are going to have an abortive or stillborn experience. And so it's only natural and logical that since most people try to learn by means of this method, that this is where they will have their experience of failure and frustration. So in the hopes of avoiding that, what are the factors that can make or break this kind of learning experience? I think that there are four main factors that present themselves to you logically as the teacher, him or herself, and the textbook, and the students, and the circumstances under which the teaching is conducted. To rearrange those four in the order in which I think that they contribute to the success or failure of the endeavor. They're all important, but they have a slightly different weight. And I think the textbook is probably the least important in this kind of learning, because even though it is sometimes chosen by a district or a department and the teacher has no leeway to vary from the curriculum, that's one set of circumstances, but more often normally a good teacher should be able to supplement even a suboptimal textbook. A good teacher, yes, obviously is the what's going to stand out in a student's memory of having a positive experience with this kind of learning. Since the teacher is at the point or the focus of this learning, he or she will get the blame or the credit, as the case may be, for everything that happens with it. So that's obviously important, but I think more important is the students, actually. And by that, I do not just mean their overall intellectual aptitude for study, but more importantly, their motivation for engaging in language study, and most importantly, their ability, their freedom to focus upon the endeavor and give it the necessary time and energy required in order to be successful at it. And that brings us into the realm of the circumstances or the environment of the teaching. And here, I think that there is very little doubt that it's a simple fact that in order for classroom language teaching to be successful, there are certain considerations that just have to be met. You have to have a relatively small group of students, 10 or perhaps 12 is an absolute maximum, and the instruction has to take place on a daily basis, very systematically, regularly, and frequently. And it is here that most schools, regular schools, and by this I mean high schools and colleges, really undercut the entire endeavor. They refuse to make the necessary concessions to these circumstances and instead insist that a foreign language has to be taught in the same time program, same time schedule, that it has to be taught in effect in the same way that other subject matters such as history or biology are taught, meeting just a couple of times a week and with enrollment considerations putting too many students in the classroom. And these are the things to really watch out for if you have any leeway in choosing a program and choosing a teacher and the like. Obviously you should check out the reputation and all these other things, but if any school district or any institution, educational institution, that asks its teacher to teach under those circumstances of too many students and in a class that doesn't meet frequently enough, is really asking both the teacher and the students to go out and fight a losing battle. And in my experience, most of the energy that schools often put out into trying to improve their language instruction goes into the first two factors, looking for a better text or giving more teacher training. And again, these are, comparatively speaking, the least important factors compared to the circumstances and the students themselves. I think that there are, for many languages, most languages, there's plenty of material out there, and if the teachers knew about all their options and could choose freely among them to suit their style and the students, that would take care of itself. And really, in order to do that, the most important kind of teacher training and real qualification and credentials for being a good foreign language teacher, in my opinion, are being a continuous foreign language student. I think that foreign language teachers should learn lots of foreign languages themselves so that they know what the process is like from the inside, rather than just getting some outside theoretical pedagogical training and instruction. And this doesn't happen very often in my experience. So I think that the odds of having a good classroom learning experience are much higher outside of what I call regular schools. If you go to a cultural center or to an intensive training institute, particularly a government-style training institute, where these factors are implemented, I think if you ask people who've been to these kinds of classroom, they're not going to find so many failure stories. You may find people who had to drop out because it was too intense, but you're not going to find stories of people who studied for years and didn't learn anything. So taking a class is always something you should consider if you can look into these factors and try to choose, if you have the freedom to choose a class environment, a teacher that is able to teach with these considerations. It's something that you should certainly consider if you have, like most potential language students, you just have a particular goal of learning a particular language, probably by a particular time. If you have good circumstances in a classroom, then it's something you should definitely explore. Likewise, if you are more interested in languages, if you want to get experience in learning languages, if polyglotry is a field that might appeal to you in the future, this is a good way to get experience not so much, not only of learning a particular language, but of learning the fruits of regular systematic study, which is what classroom language instruction really can bring. Because it is set on a schedule and on a program, you have to go to it with external discipline. If you don't have the internal discipline to bring to studies, which is what's really required, then taking a class is a good place to learn that. But it's something that is, frankly speaking, is almost transcended. As I said, I learned some languages in this fashion when I was young, but I and all the other polyglots I know, you come to a point when you just realize you can teach yourself better than somebody else can teach you, and